Dave, we get lots of calls in our shops about tune-ups.
Oh, yeah.
So what is a tune-up? And tune-up was spark plugs, used to be. I mean, long time ago, it used to be points and condensers and caps and rotors and wires. And then it was, at some point, just pretty much spark plugs was your tuning. You would replace the spark plugs and maybe turn a couple screws. But nowadays, the computer turns all the screws. Electronically, there's no screw tuning to get screwed.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
So spark plugs, when you're supposed to replace them, the rules have changed. The wrong spark plugs will fit in the right car. So all kinds of stuff. So if you want to get in on this conversation, whether it's spark plugs, tune-ups, what's the modern-day tune-up? Maybe the modern-day tune-up has nothing to do with spark plugs. 602-277-5827, 602-277-KTAR. Those are the numbers to dial if you want to get in on the action. You can also text at 411-923. So, Dave, how do we want to break this thing down in spark plugs, and when should we do them or when should we not, and maybe the fallacies, how long they last?
Well, I think spark plugs can be over-recommended, and then sometimes I think they're under-taken care of. I had a Ford E150 van in my shop this week, and it didn't want to get out of its own way because the catalytic converters were bad. Well, they were bad because the engine was misfiring so bad. The engine was misfiring so bad because the spark plug was bad, and that spark plug that was bad wiped out a coil. So, had they, and this was an expensive repair because it was California emissions, catalytic converters.
Oof.
It was expensive. And we got the cats in there, and then we figured out, hey, the engine runs so bad, we got to fix that now.
Well, the question is what killed the cat,
Bad spark plugs.
Bad spark plug. So the spark plug can be a cat murderer for no fault of its own, right? I mean,
yes.
So on that van, you said it was a van?
Yep, E150.
E150, so a Ford. When were the spark plugs supposed to be changed?
100,000 miles is the recommendation on those. But as an industry, we know if you leave those spark plugs in there for 100,000 miles, it's way too long. So we start changing them at about 80. So we know that the factory recommendation is too long because what happens is spark plugs don't want to come out. They get stuck in there, and there's been a lot of problems, and we're getting better at it and better at it.
Well, and every manufacturer has their own problems. I mean, on the Ford, for example, you're right. They get carbon buildup, and there's very little threads. There's 3 or 4 threads that maybe they're hooked in there with, so there's difficulty getting them out. But then you take that same 100,000-mile recommendation. Let's just jump over now to a Chevrolet or a GMC engine. That's also a 100,000-mile spark plug. But we're not changing them early because they're hard to get out. They don't have that problem like the Fords have. They just wear out, especially if you're towing. So if you're towing your boat or your work truck, or maybe you're a plumber with a van or something like that, we have found over time that the spark plugs just don't last that long. They become inefficient. They don't work well. And so, we change them at 80,000 miles. But then, what was it? I remember used to get Bosch spark plugs for 99 cents.
Oh, yeah.
You talk to
you could buy 5, get the 6th one free.
Yeah, you talk to a mature gentleman nowadays, and you tell him a spark plug is $27, he might have a heart attack or come down there and want to choke you. So there's a difference between the spark plugs. I'm going to call it about a standard copper core spark plug. Maybe they're $5 or $6. We can get some of these double iridium and platinum and palladium and whatever these
polonium carbide,
whatever they're made of, precious metals in these spark plugs. They're $25, $27 each. That really can make the cost of your tune-up really go, whoa, make you really have some sticker shock.
Well, the other thing, too, about the tune-up that's changed is most engines are transverse in the modern car. If you have a front-wheel drive car, most of your new SUVs are really front-wheel drive anymore. So the motors turn sideways, so 3 of the spark plugs are right there up front, piece of cake to get to. The 3 in the back, well, you can't get to them unless you pull the intake manifold off.
Yeah.
So now it's a bigger deal, to get to those spark plugs. But, we see coils fail as these plugs go out. The resistance in them gets higher, and it starts chewing up coils. So it's one of those things.
It takes more to fire that big, fat gap. It takes a higher voltage. So it can really wear in other components. It can affect fuel mileage.
But let's turn back the clock, because spark plugs used to be replaced every 15,000 miles.
Oh, well, yeah, because they would, for a number of reasons. Maybe not because the spark plug was worn out, more because the fuel delivery
was not
systems
so good.
were not as efficient using carburetors and stuff. Because I remember Hey, I had a tech that worked for me a few years ago, an older guy. And he had the old glass beater. He used to take the spark plugs out and clean it and then put them back in, way back in the day.
Yeah.
There was nothing wrong with them. They weren't worn out. They just had a coating on them. So you need to clean the coating off, but not so much anymore.
So yeah, every 15,000 miles up to every 100,000 miles. But I mean, some cars are still recommended at 30. Am I wrong?
No. A lot of Volkswagens are 40,000 miles. Some of your more these cars now with direct injection, they're starting to change a little bit. And you got to remember, this is a lot like the old oil change. Oh, you can go 10,000 miles on your oil change. Yeah, I guess you can in the most perfect set of circumstances. But is it the wise thing to do?
No.
Probably not. And then, like you said, not all spark plugs are created equal. So you can take this Ford, Dave. I bet the Ford that you were working on, those were probably some kind of platinum plug, and they're probably, I guess, in the $15 to $20 range.
Yep.
But you can go in the book. In some catalogs, it'll list that car, and then maybe that manufacturer has 4 levels of spark plugs. So they will list the $2 spark plug that fits in that $20 hole, and some people will use that. For example, I have a Mercury Mariner in my shop, and the guy's going to drive across country. He wants to do some minimal work. So one of the things we pulled out a spark plug. It's got about 90,000 miles on it. And we said, wow, it really needs spark plugs. And he says, well, but they were replaced at 60. They're due every 60,000. They should be fine. I said, yeah, but they're the wrong ones. They put in a standard copper core plug. So I don't know if that was the result of being at the, quote, tune-up shop or the tire shop that happens to do tune-ups or whatever that was. Or maybe somebody just wanted to, maybe somebody, A, didn't know better, or B, that's their strategy to lower their price.
They want to, lower their price and make more money for themselves.
Or
or
possibly. Both. Yeah.
Remember the Spitfire? Like that was in the late 80s, early 90s. Spitfire. Yeah. They had that commercial with this amazing looking spark plug. It was sexy. I mean, I thought, wow, that's a nice looking spark
Lightning
plug.
bolts, like thunderstorms,
And so, but the point of that thing is that the wrong spark plug for the car is the wrong spark plug. It will cause issues. So if you were, I don't think they sell those things anymore. But sometimes, whatever came in the car, that's the spark plug I want to put back in it. I don't want any alternatives. I don't want, oh yeah, we got this one that's a little bit hotter. No, I want the one that came in the car because that's the one the computer is designed around, the coils are designed around, everything is designed around that, that right spark plug. There's no sense in, a lot of people want to upgrade things,
Yeah.
If hot is good, hotter is even better,
Right.
So they want to upgrade things, but really these engineers at these factories have designed these cars down to the nanometer. I mean, they're perfect, they can,
right down to the gnats behind.
Exactly. So I'm not going to do any backyard Dave engineering, and I'm going to do something different, and make it better. Whatever it came with, put that back in there. So, some of these cars, we know what brand of spark plug came in certain cars, and we'll put the brand that it came with. It may not say Honda on it, but it may be an NGK because maybe that year Honda's had NGKs in it. Well, we'll do that, but that is, for all intents and purposes, the plug that came with the car. So we do a lot of that. So I'm a big proponent. Save a few bucks and cause yourself a lot of money. And not only that, to do it wrong, you're just going to have to do it twice. So whatever you saved, you got to spend it twice to still do it wrong.
I tell my guys, if you don't have time to do it right, you don't have time to do it twice. And the same thing, if you can't afford to do it wrong, or if you can't afford to do it, whatever the heck I want to say.
Yeah, I know. Everyone else knows what you're
Everybody
saying.
else knows what I'm saying but me. If you can't afford to do it wrong, you can do it twice or whatever. I'm going to give up now on that one. But
if you can't afford to say it right, don't say it at all.
How about that? You got me on that one. I'm got my tongue tied. Anyway, so there's a lot of different things that can happen with the spark plugs, and then some brands. You take AC Delco, they're a brand. They don't even make spark plugs anymore. Somebody else makes them for them. We still use AC Delco in the cases where we don't know who the manufacturer was because we want to make sure we're putting the right product in that GM car. And then you might be surprised, a lot of listeners out there, you got your Porsche or your high-end Benz or something. You're thinking, I'm German all the way. October's coming, And nope, that's got a Japanese spark plug in it nowadays.
I know, isn't that something?
Yeah, it's funny. The first one I pulled out several years ago, it's got the NGK and the Audi logo. I'm like, wow.
Times have
Mr.
changed.
Bosch would be rolling over in his grave.
Oh, times have changed. There was a gentleman in my shop the other day with a BMW, and he's like, I want to get this thing serviced, and I know that BMWs are they say lifetime fill on the transmission. So I don't know if I should, but what do you think? I said, I think you definitely should. And actually, your BMW actually has a General Motors transmission in it. And the guy's like, what? General Motors transmission?
He was
Yeah, no,
insulted.
totally. It's got a General Motors transmission in it. And why do you service it? Because on the BMW, it says factory, fill for life transmission fluid. And over in the GM car in the next bay, it's, service every 50,000 miles.
The same
transmission.
Same transmission.
So there's so much marketing and stuff that goes into all that. But you all have spark plugs, and the whole point of this show is to kind of put you in the know so you know what's normal, and it's something you can think about. Hey, have I had my spark plugs changed? One of the best places you can look is in your owner's manual. See when they're recommended. That way, when you're in the shop and they say, oh, you need some spark plugs on your car, you can kind of be in the know. Hey, I was reading my manual, and they're actually not recommended to 100,000 miles. So why are you recommending them to me at 80? Well, we know that the manual's wrong in that case, and we know there's problems if we let them go that far. So we're going to go ahead and recommend them to you at 80. But now you're having a conversation, based off of a little bit of knowledge. So that's what we want to give you knowledge to, relieve anxiety, put you in the know about your car.